Welcome to another episode on my YouTube channel. Today we're going to look at something that is pretty important also in the era of AI, signing your commits and using a hard to physical key to actually do that. Julie, welcome to the show. Why the hell do we need that? What's the main root cause for needing a physical device to sign your commits?
Okay, so I'll just start by saying I used to be an enterprise architect in a German insurance company, and so we're super paranoid. And back then, I was just kind of playing around the cloud, and I knew, being really cheeky, with Git commits, Git is a distributed system that runs offline. I could just say, "Hi, I'm Johannes Koch, and I know your email," and I could easily just commit as you. And when I push to github.com, GitHub only checks, am I allowed to push to a specific repo? It will not check all the commits and say like, hey, is this actually Johannes? Or back then, and we'll see as well an example, people like to use Linus Torvalds. And that's how you know if Linus is in your repository, it's a hack. Because part of my job was to instill best practices among the developers, a lot of people didn't believe me. And I was like, I could just break production and put the commit in your name. And so I did that once or twice. Let's just say after that, people both said, oh, this is really important. We need to figure out how to lock down the Git credentials. I go to the extreme with my own money and pay for a YubiKey. I was also, by the way, told, Julie, don't do that. You scare people. Okay.
Okay. That sounds like something we still need to be aware of in 2026, right? Especially with the upcoming AI coding agents and things like that. I think it's pretty critical to also ensure that our own identity is protected, right? Yes. Do you have one or two examples where that kind of happened before, or where people in the industry maybe faced that problem?
Off the top of my head, I don't, but I think the concern is, and actually by coincidence last night, my Claude code agent decided to go a few parent directories higher than the project it's in. And what I do, which is not necessarily best practice, I do not run my agent in a sandbox on my local machine, which is realistically probably what the majority of developers do. You should do it. And if you use VS Code, or a lot of people who use Windows, I'm a Mac user, already used to it. It's a little bit sort of in WSL, and there's already some level of segregation. The best is, of course, to have a containerized process where the AI agent runs. But in the age of OpenClaw, people are happy to just give the AI coding assistants or AI LLM access to everything, which is like, okay, how much level of trust do you have in both the LLMs and the harness around it? And I have high trust around Anthropic and Claude Code. But even I, yesterday, tired as I was, said allow all. And it was like, oh, I need to find a pattern. She said, write it like the way she does. Let me just go up and check. And I was just like, that's not what I meant.
Okay. So that means you are not allowing your agents to commit anything to Git, is what I'm hearing. And there's reason for that.
Yes. So the agents would like to do that. And I think a lot of people run agents in parallel to, pull a task from your Jira board, GitHub issues, whatever, and it will independently execute the task. And, just like as humans, we will commit sort of stuff in progress. But also when we're done, the agent needs a way to share that with you. So generally, that's going to be via commit. My Claude codes now know that you can't commit. You can try, but you can't. And the reason is, and this is an old key that I have on my keychain, is I put, the camera's not going to focus, I put my private key on this physical key. And I'll show in the blog article, but there's a little piece of gold contact on the side. And the whole point is it requires human touch. And so my current setup, I have a small one that's permanently attached to my computer. But it will not unlock to allow access to the private key until you actually touch it. And so I went even another step and said, no, I need to personally, physically say, yes, you're allowed to commit.
Cool. Yeah. So I have this device as well.
Yes. Perfect.
So which is, I think, what you're using. I think that's a YubiKey. What is that? Like you and I, we kind of just talked about that, but maybe not everybody in the audience knows that, right? So what is it? What is a YubiKey? What is this type of thing? This small dongle that you that you carry around with you?
Yes, and I'm terrible. I need to look up what HSM stands for, but it's a hardware security. I don't know what the M is.
I don't know either. Hardware
security. Let's just call it mechanism for now. But the idea is generally when you create, let's say, SSH keys, most people have heard of that. You put the private key on your server and you have access, the public key on your server and you have access to the private key. And because of asymmetric encryption, it's okay. That's why it's called a public key, that people have access to it. So github.com, I've saved my public key on github.com. A lot of people who are super security minded will upload it to their public website so that people can confirm if they have the right tooling. This email really came from Julie, because you can sign all your emails or commits in my situation with your private key. Now, it's on your computer, and most of those credentials that we use every day, like for our cloud tools, even GitHub or most things, you go to the home directory, look for a folder that starts with a ., go in, and if you want to, you can find security credentials, whether they are just access tokens, long strings, or whether even if it's an OAuth token. Everybody's into OAuth.
True.
And which is, it's good, don't get me wrong, but there's still, it's not necessarily the best setup. I personally still feel the very, very best setup is there's no token lying on disk. And so when you use a YubiKey and you, I can't think of the English word, but you touch it, you allow the system access to the key, it's only memory.
True.
The LLM can't grab it. Now, if it has access to the process where you just unlocked it, then yes, it has indirectly that, but it doesn't have your credentials, right? And you can set the window to something really, really tiny.
And that makes it definitely more secure, right? So that also ensures really that no one can grab your credentials to do anything with that on your behalf in the future, right? Well, maybe that sometimes you want that, but only for a short amount of time, right? And I don't know, we can talk a bit about your setup there, right? But if you want to extend the session, if that's possible for the agent or not, I don't know, right? But usually you still have coding sessions where you have a human in the loop, right? So every time that you need to allow access, you can still do that, right?
Yeah, you can. I've already started designing how I want my future setup to look. And what's really important is that you separate, I use actors as a normal term, but I think in engineering, we use the term principals, right? You have user principals, which are humans, and you have service principals, which are robots. So if you have a Claude agent or whatever agent, and you can decide yourself how granular you want to be, right? Let's say you have multiple agents, then you would want to give multiple agents, if you choose that path, different credentials. And so for the future path that I do want to do, as soon as my IDE supports it, I actually want to create then an extra GitHub account just for the agent, and the agent can make commits, but not as me. And that's the key difference. So my key will always be on a physical YubiKey. I don't have any qualms, me personally, about giving an agent finely grained access to specific repos where I actually use the agent. And GitHub allows for that.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's also the way that some of the coding systems that we already have today are actually doing that. Kiro Web, I think I told you about that. I think also uses a bot that is an application that is installed, and then you give the application access to your repository. But obviously, a commit coming from Johannes would need to be signed by Johannes, right?
Yes.
And I think that's the main difference, right? Now, let's talk a bit about does your setup actually look like? So can we dive a little bit deeper into, okay, now that's the workflow. Julie is in a coding session working with Claude. Claude is doing something. Claude is doing changes or codecs or whatever you use. And then you get to the stage where you need to commit your thing, right? How does that look, and what do you need to do to make that happen?
Yes, okay. Let's try to do screen share, and I'm secure enough to say,
Julie, we're not trying here. You know that it's gonna work. And,
no. I think it's important to share with people, like, okay, we're not perfect. Plus, we can edit this when we record it. So
we will not. My audience knows that I'm not editing a lot, right? But maybe we can just before we get started here talk a bit you and I, we didn't know each other, right? But I was stalking you on YouTube for a while because I love the stuff that you did, especially on Azure DevOps when you were still at Microsoft. And I think that's how you and I connected.
Yes.
And for me, it's. I think collaborations in industry are pretty important. And I just wanted to say that the way that you present your stuff on your channel was for me always pretty inspiring, and I was trying to mimic some of the stuff that you did, and I hope that you can continue and re-evolve the channel in the next weeks and months. So for those that don't know Julie's channel, I'm linking it in the show notes, and also I think I'm gonna try that collaboration feature that we have, so you can directly see what she's been doing in the past. Pretty important and interesting stuff that really talks about how you solve your own problems as a developer, and that's what we're trying today, right? So if you haven't set up your system on how to use code signing, a key to sign your commits, then maybe this is your chance to understand how to do that today.
Thank you for the super flattering intro. And I do have to say as well that I want to thank you. I've been a little bit slow to come back off the ground and publish as many videos. And you've taught me a lot about your workflow and how I can streamline mine. And it's okay, we're not perfect. I think one of the things I try to do on my channel is to be authentic. And I'm not perfect. And by coincidence, what I stupidly did yesterday, I did it last night, so we have it, something to look at. So thank you as well for motivating me and for arranging this, that we do this, today in the morning. Okay.
And I hope that you start back up, really, right? So continue what you started, please. So let's check what you did yesterday that didn't work. And I can see CDK. Did you just do that for me?
No. There's various reasons. Actually, let me just bring up very quickly. Where did I put the tab? Oh, because I had to restart. It's not there. Copy. Let me just bring up this as well very briefly. So I use trigger.dev. And so I have an application that I've built. It's going to be a cold start. It'll take a few seconds to load. I have an application that I built, and it runs a multi-layered LLM pipeline. Mm-hmm. And so all these individual steps are run on agent.dev. Sorry, trigger.dev. I keep calling it agent.dev.
Trigger.dev. Okay.
Trigger.dev. And it's just by coincidence I was doing some research on them because I'm thinking of moving off of them because their CLI constantly has security issues in the node packages. And nobody's perfect. But I would like them to be aufgehoben, repaired, fixed, or whatever, upgraded within the time span of weeks. It's been months, and because I'm in a phase where I'm exploring where do I want to take my career next. I'm exploring beyond Azure. I used to work for Microsoft, and so before my previous jobs, I was on AWS, and so that's why I'm at CDK. So this describes the timeline of the attack. And I think for the sake of just time, we'll post the link in the show notes. But basically what you can imagine is in a post install or pre-install hook, when you just do npm install, or in this case, pnpm install, an attacker got into an engineer's computer. And while the engineer was sleeping, did a lot of damage. Now, one thing that's important to note is that when you get access to the engineer-specific token, you then suddenly have access to that software, right? To all the private repos that they have access to, or that token is scoped to have access to. And so that's what basically happened to the application. The post-mortem just describes how it happens. It didn't affect any customer data, etc., yada, yada, yada. But it's interesting to read, to learn about how this happened. So I think I'm going to stop there with that piece of it and go into the IDE. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's go that. Let's do that. I think people can read offline about what happened over there, right? And why this is so important. But I think it follows the same storyline that we talked about earlier, right? You don't want others to be able to incorporate your identity.
Yep. So how I tend to work is I use actually my own sort of terminal. And I do my Git commits by hand. You can see I use VI. So Claude will sometimes write the messages, but most of the time it happens then here in iTerm. I'm using an IDE called Zed. It's new. I really like it. It's in Rust, so it's super fast. It's lightweight. I personally find VS Code a little bit clunky. Now, when I said earlier that as soon as my IDE supports it, this has natively, I can start a new session, and I just really like this agent panel and how it works with the code on the side. And my personal workflow is more pair programming. Pair programming in real time. So I'll tell it to do something and I'll immediately review the code. Now for this particular project, it's basically a POC. Can I use temporal, which is it's another thing, let's just say similar to trigger.dev, but like on steroids for enterprises. And one of the things that's nice about it is I don't have to do retries. It does all of that for me. So this is a POC. That's all you need to know. At the same time, I said, let's run it on AWS. And part of it is that this new temporal preview feature only works with AWS Lambdas. And so I haven't used Lambdas in about 10 years. So I was like, let's see what's happened with
cool.
Lambdas.
Okay, yeah, pretty interesting.
Yes.
And when you're on that, also look at the durable functions that Lambda has these days, which is a lightweight implementation of temporal. At the end, it's status functions, right? So stateful functions, sorry.
I think I think maybe under the hood, that's what this is. I don't know. I haven't gotten too deep, so deep enough again in AWS that I can tell you. But this is a new feature. And I think in terms of deployment, it's so tightly coupled. Temporal might actually already do that under the hood. And actually temporal invokes the function. So I have to deploy the function so it exists. Mm-hmm. But temporal is actually...
managing the state throughout it. Yeah.
The state and also deploying it. Okay.
So you have a similar workflow than I do, right?
Yeah.
I also do pair programming with the agent mainly. I do some feature development with the agent going offline at the end, right? But also my setup is similar. As I think I told you, I use the Kiro IDE for that, but haven't tried set and haven't tried this setup. Okay. The commits that I do are also pretty manual.
Yeah.
I have found myself to sometimes give the agent the allowance to do commits, and I think I need to think about that again. So how do you work with it? Like you get the agent to do the stuff, or the agents to work on your stuff, and then you get to the point where you want to commit things.
So I tend to micromanage my agents and tell them exactly what I want. There are exceptions, and last night what I did was an exception. But I tend to, if I'm writing code, micromanage it, because the problem with AI coding assistants is it kind of has like tunnel vision. And until it really does something where like, wait a minute, this doesn't look right, it will just keep going down that path. So sometimes it's only a few steps. Sometimes it's like a long session that wastes hours on my side. So that's something to be aware of. And that's why I do the kind of pair programming. I do granular commits because it also forces you, do you understand what this code actually does? So I'm a person that firmly believes that even if we were to have, really autonomous AI coding assistants, at the end of the day, a human owns the code, owns it in terms of liability. And so, it could be you saying pull request, okay. If agents can approve pull requests, it's like, who designed that system? Because then you own that and you are liable if you design that system. So in my system, I don't allow it. What I wanted to mention about this setup is that this panel, right? So if you use VS Code, VS Code allows you through the Claude plugin, actually use your Claude subscription credentials in this panel. And so you could run it in a sandbox, containerized sandbox, and then you won't have the problem that I'm about to show you. Zed does not yet support that. Okay. So if I were to run this in a sandbox, I would have to use an API key with Anthropic. And here, this is a new session. It just shows, okay, so last night I burned through $10. I'm using Opus, which is very expensive, but I personally find better results with Opus than with Sonnet. And it's like, no way am I putting in my API key for my coding sessions, for my apps. Yes, I'll pay for it, but not for this. And so I tend to kind of stay here. What we did, because this was a POC, and in the process of the POC of moving an existing application, I actually had to migrate everything off of Azure and go to S3 and Textract, which was a bit of a mental model shift. And part of it was just the libraries that Azure has. It bloated the Lambda function, and there were just incompatibilities because Azure needs binaries for whatever reason. Anyway, so we figured all of that out, and all the different pieces of infrastructure as code. I have Terraform in here because I'm a Terraform person. I love it. For Lambdas, we did use the CDK. So it was my first time actually really using CDK. Super happy with it. It runs really well. And so all that stuff it manages. And it works well with the temporal libraries. So like this, I'm super happy with. But basically, we have a giant mess.
Okay. But it's a POC, so it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter in the sense that you can start with a giant mess, but it's also real life engineering is super messy, right?
True.
And so one of the things I like to do is I like to have Makefiles. And so what a coding agent defaults to is it'll create all these different shell scripts. It'll say 0 dot or dash setup dot shell and then 1 dash something dot blah blah blah. And I really don't like it because you have to just execute them all separately in order. I personally prefer Makefiles. What's nice about Makefiles is that here you can see I could theoretically do, make down, and it would destroy everything in the correct order of dependencies. Okay. Similarly, I could say up, and it would, create the infrastructure in the right order, and the right order is something you design as a human. And so you can just kind of do all of that. And I figured last night that, okay, we've confirmed every piece works. I've also now renamed everything. Now it can write the Makefile. The mistake I made was I had discussed with the session before this one, with the Claude, and said, here's some example Makefiles from my github.com. This is how I want it done. Forget all your stupid shell stuff that you keep doing. I want it in a Makefile. And I was like, oh, okay, I understood. And one of the things I do is so this is only at 19%. I find that Opus starts hallucinating actually already at about 40, 50%.
Okay.
And so I will start a new session. And I tell the old session, write everything down to memory. I didn't read all the memory things. I didn't fully read that it did not save the Makefiles where I sent it the GitHub URL. So what this Claude started doing, and I think I was just tired, you can see it was like, oh, where does Julie probably keep her stuff? Let's just, her reference repos. And it just decided to go up and just look at it. And the thing is, I think I went to dinner. I was just tired. I was like, okay, let's just, go back and forth. You understood what I meant. And I had just assumed it had references to the public GitHub URLs. No, it just went into my parent directories. This is bad. This is really bad. Any Env files that are lying around, they will have long expired credentials. Oops, sorry about that microphone. They will have long expired credentials. So I'm not worried about it kind of stealing something. But the fact that it just went up and did that, I'm just like, oh dear. I really need to sandbox this as quickly as possible. So this is a coincidence.
That's concerning somehow. Yeah, the moment that the agent just does something like that.
Yeah. So that happened last night. Let me bring up another URL. Let me just pull it here first. Okay, I think this is the right one. Yes. So we'll come back to our Chrome browser. And so I'm not saying do this instead of. I'm saying this is what I'm doing right now as another measure that I don't yet use Claude in a sandbox. So I use 1Password for my daily password management. You can see it chilling over here. One of the features they have is a developer feature. It's also a beta feature, so you have to install a specific CLI and a specific version of the app, I think, as well. And so I actually store all these credentials now in 1Password.
Okay.
So generally, last night's project had temporary credentials. I use this. So once infrastructure is set up correctly, I will use this. And then there is no Env file in the repository. So it can do whatever it wants, but it won't find what it needs. It also means it likes to run certain tests. And in the age of distributed applications where you have a backing service, hosted service for everything, then it can't run certain tests. It will just fail. So this comes with a CLI. Does it have the command here? No.
And the 1Password CLI gives access to the credentials to the actual process.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So I can't find it off the top of my head, but basically I just do op run, specify the environment variable, the 1Password environment variable. So all these different environments have an ID, and I'll load it into memory in runtime. So there's no Env file lying around. Of course, there is a way to just mount it. Makes it easier for everybody. And I did that for a while. But yeah, so I removed it for the literally the POC that was we were working on yesterday, just because it wasn't working, right? So it's like, fine, I'll generate explicit credentials that are very short-lived, also very, very tiny budget for the AI gateway. And you can just see the type of things that are there. By the way, I'm impressed that S3, in the meantime, it's like there are no secret keys. It's running, in this case, it's piggybacking off my session, but I don't have to give it any sort of API key. Yep. But anyway, so this is what it had access to like yesterday. And I was just
okay.
like, yeah, okay. That's workflow.
That's workflow. Okay,
yes.
So now you the coding agent finished the session. You created something that you want to commit to the repository. And now I would just say, okay, you do git commit and you add a message and you're done, and then you do a git push, or not.
Yes,
Is it not that
yes,
simple?
more or less. And actually, we can do this live because I haven't committed it yet.
Cool.
So this is just coincidence.
Now,
I was too tired. I didn't even check it.
Come on, this is so prepared. Okay, anyway, so now we go back to the terminal. So that means you don't use the terminal in the Z IDE because you don't like it, or why?
I don't like it. So I started my career as a designer, and this font, like if you look at it here, it's much thicker than this one. I'll bring it back. This is just so much more pleasant for my eyes. It's habit. Also, you saw that I'm viewing all the commits, and it's just everything here is, in the IDE, everything here is squished. I don't like it. So, yeah. I mean,
that means you're going back to the terminal. I think I do that from time to time, but more into the IDE these days. Okay, then I can see that you have your own aliases for different commands to make things easier. So that means a G means Git, I guess.
Yes.
And with that, you use the normal Git commits, Git commands.
Yes, I use the normal commands. And again, I think it's good just for the context switch. It forces you to just clear your head. You don't have distraction of the code. And then as you do this, and so actually what I can show, and I don't care if you see the Claude. So, sometimes I do patches. Right, and I'll actually just look and see the changes. The IDEs make it nicer, right? But it's like, it's okay. I think it's good exercise to be able to kind of do that as well manually. But let's just quickly show the workflow. So, and I'm just going to say testing 1, 2, 3 because it doesn't matter. It's on my branch and I'll revert it.
Will this work now?
Yes.
Why?
Well, not immediately, but I'll show you exactly the flow. Okay.
But where's the signing? Like
this is where I'll show you in a second. But basically, it's trying to get access to the private key to actually sign the commit. So I have to do a pin first, and then you see it just hang here. It won't do anything, and that's because I need to then touch it. I'm touching it now, and then it'll make the commit.
Okay.
And so you can configure that window, how long it's now cached. And so I think I put in 1 or 2 minutes because if you're rebasing a bunch of commits, let's say you're rebasing 20 commits, then you'd have to touch it 20 times, which I don't want. The other thing to show here is this is a new branch. And so I will have to push it using use because it's the first time I'm pushing to I don't remember what use stands for, but I'm pushing back to GitHub. Now, pushing to GitHub, that runs over normal HTTPS, and the credentials for that, and I do have a access token. I don't have an OAuth token, or I don't use an OAuth token. It will, again, prompt me. Because it's a different process, I have to unlock the card again, and then you'll see it'll also hang. It'll hang until I touch it. And now
that's why you touch the YubiKey in the background to actually do the commit and approve and get access to the private key that you need to do the commit. Okay, got it.
Yes.
Now, two different...
Not the private key, just to be sort of really clear about that. Basically, somewhere here I have if we scroll up, we have a netrc file, and it's GPG at the extension, so you can't. It's a binary. You can't see anything.
Okay.
And that netrc file, see, it's a binary file. I'm not going to look at it. That's where it's encrypted, and to decrypt it, and I've configured all of that. I don't know if I want to open up any of these configuration files.
You don't want to, but maybe it makes sense to write a blog post around that, right? So how did you do that configuration? Because that's something that is really hard for users as well, right? Now,
Yes.
what I was pointing at is there is the line where you did the git commit. That
Yes.
git commit, behind that, where did you tell Git that you need to sign the commit? Right, I think that must be implicit in your environment somewhere, because by default Git doesn't sign commits. Right?
And I'm terrible and I don't remember. And let me see if I put it in here. Please tell me I put it in here.
That's the article that I read a while ago.
Yes, but now that you're asking that, I'm like, okay, did I explicitly say, here's the command, how you do it? Maybe it's towards the end.
I can't remember either, but I was like, I know that this is a step that you need to do, right? Where you need to configure your Git to actually use the signing key. You just had it over there, right?
Yeah, but no, but
that
that's...
you need to tell it that it should sign all commits.
This
somewhere,
one here.
right? Yes.
So it's down here. Yeah.
I think this is the one. Yes.
Yes.
And I think that's a configuration that you also
put it
need to
there.
do, right? Yeah. But
I was like, do I actually have it? I don't remember.
That's what I was missing in the demo at the end,
Yeah.
right? Because you were just doing git commit -m and then it just went through. And no, that's not the case, right? You need to prepare your local setup to actually enforce that signing happens automatically every time that you commit. Now, this is simple in your case because you're an individual developer right now,
Yes.
right? In my case, where I'm using, don't tell my manager, I'm sometimes using my work PC to do private commits as well, where I have different identities and different keys to sign things with, right? So my private GPG key is not available in my organizational repositories, and the other way around, right? There you need to be very specific, right? You
Yes.
can't use the global config. You need to use a project-specific configuration, and that means you need to enforce commit signing for every project that you have, right?
Yeah. And somewhere I have here, I had to do the same thing when I was at Microsoft. And
We
so
can
you
link exactly that, yeah.
Yeah, and you can do it basically per repository. You saw that I had the global flag in the previous article, the way I'm currently working. But then for specific repositories that was for work, then I would just configure it for that particular repository.
Exactly, and that's important. But the moment that
Yeah.
you set that up once, right, then Git would automatically sign all of your commits, and that means
Yes.
that you will always be clear that what you actually committed is also coming from you at the end. Now, let's look at that commit, and you were just going there on GitHub. How do I see now that this commit was signed?
Yeah, so I figured I would just show it. And so this is what it will show. And it will specify as well which GPG key was used. And then you just see it's that person's verified signature. So it's me saying that really was me. And what that gives you is, in English we say plausible deniability. So let's say, somebody made a malicious commit under your name. You can say, nope, it wasn't me. I always do this. You cannot prove it was me. And that's really, really important. Unless you have a GitHub Enterprise license.
Can you switch to the branch? That
For
we
this
just
one? Or?
pushed? Yeah,
that we just pushed.
Yeah.
That's private, but that's fine. Where is it? It is here. And this one? Yes, you want me to pull open the commit or?
Yeah, let's just pull up the commit we just did to just ensure that this is the commit we signed. Where do I see that here? Okay, over there I see the verified one.
Yes,
Okay,
the verified one. Yeah. So
okay, got it. You were just explaining that with GitHub Enterprise you can do more than that. Tell me more.
Well, there's a little bit. So remember I said earlier that if I sign a commit with your name, and I do a push, GitHub will only check, okay, is this person allowed to push? They're not going to check that it matches. If you have GitHub Enterprise and you configure auditing, then you could make the correlation if you do it fast enough, because such logs get really big, but you could make the correlation that these group of commits were pushed to GitHub using Julie. So unless Johannes was sitting next to Julie, and we live in different cities, that looks suspicious. But GitHub doesn't offer that out of the box. It's an enterprise feature. And even then, right, it's just a correlation. It's still not foolproof. But I think it's really important today to protect yourself and just say, hey, this was actually me. You should know how Git works under the hood. But as well, like I said, I don't trust the AI fully. So.
Yep, and I don't trust the AI fully either, but I still have the problem that I haven't turned on to enforce signing for my public GitHub repository, so I think I might need to do that. So first call to action for you listening here, right? If you haven't set up your Git repositories on github.com/public to enforce signing of commits, then please do that now.
Yeah, and you know what? Just do it like it's one thing you set up once, and so this is the old article which you can follow. But I published mine because there just wasn't good articles that put everything together. And previously I had showed the repo that showed the 2026 setup, which is a little bit more complex with redundant keys. But you just do it once. And so if I come here to my profile, and I don't mind...
Well, you do it once, and then you do it for each machine that you use to push something.
Yeah, but then it's just a configuration, right?
Yeah,
like that. Then you just say it's a key ID, and most machines nowadays, everything's already pre-installed with using these types of hardware keys. It's not new. So you can see in all these email addresses are or were public at some point, but then you just put it here and you just save it forever. It doesn't matter. So some of these keys are retired or since destroyed. But I leave it here as well. Why not? You can see this one expired. And so, you just leave it. Set it once and then just forget about it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Julie, this was amazing. This was really good and a very good setup. I think coming close to the end.
Yes.
What are you up next for in here? What is what you're doing? What is what you're not going to be doing YubiKey the whole day, right? And what is what you're working on?
So I'm taking technically a break right now, and so it's complicated, and I published on my channel as sort of a video. I'm doing fun employment right now. And the idea was just to fall back in love with engineering. So I had a phase, as many people who work in corporate, you lost motivation. You're like, why am I doing any of this? And I think I was in the trap of, I worked for a provider and I just couldn't see the value. And part of it was a workflow that it wasn't how my head worked. And so finding my workflow, which was, Claude Code, Zed, a different IDE, I just started enjoying it again. It's not enough. So, I used to post a lot more. There's just more motivation, more energy. And I feel like I haven't recovered enough yet to be the engineer that I want to be. Like whether that's my public facing self or also just like me. And so I'm just kind of doing that at the moment. Passively looking for the next employer, the next phase of my career. What does that look like? That's a whole another box of issues. Like, what does it actually want? It's like, what? Let me code. Let me look at that Makefile. It's a little bit easier. I don't want to think about the philosophical bits.
And I think that's not what I wanted to talk about at the end, right? So for me, it's really like. You're mentioning to bring back the fun of engineering and bring back the fun of what work means for you, and I think that's a pretty important portion of it, right? So
yes.
I think I think the way that I've gotten to know you, you're an engineer that loves to do engineering, and that's I think what makes it so entertaining also for others to follow. There is a bunch of people that do that on the web as well, right? So sharing what they are learning, sharing what they are doing is a very good thing for others to follow and to learn from that, right? So
yeah, I wish I did more now. Like part of the dip that I fell into was I didn't find that AI coding assistant workflow that suited me. Right. Yeah. And the thing is, right now in the media, all you see are the people who are very anti-AI and the people who are super pro-AI. It's like, where are the folks in the middle? And the majority of us are in the middle. And that's why I'm sharing with you what I did today, both the good and the bad. And I was like, last night I didn't like what it did.
And the problem is with people in the middle, we are not being, we're not drastical enough to be heard, right? And I
Yes.
think that's because I'm on the same camp as you are, right? I see benefits, but I also see problems of the AI workflows that we're getting into. And what I also see is that all of those people that love AI so much, they forget engineering best practices that you actually need to follow, like signing your commits. It sounds ridiculous that you need to explain that to people, but there's so many AI lovers and vibe coders out there that don't even know what that actually means, right?
No,
I think that's important. Julie, thank you very, very much
You're
for
welcome.
coming on the show.
Thank you for
really
organizing. Thank you for organizing everything. This helps with my motivation. So I really want to thank you for reaching out and say, hey, let's do this. And I was like, no, it's going to take a while. You're like, no, it's easy.
We're just going to do it. Just bias for action. I think that's what you need to, what sometimes you need. So have an amazing rest of your warm day.
Thank you. You too. We have a heat wave in Germany for those watching outside of Germany.
And for those watching later, I hope that you enjoyed. If you didn't, please let us know. If you have follow-up questions that Julie can't answer in the blog post, feel free to put them in the show notes down there as well, or in the comments wherever you see the video. And if you want to do a follow-up on this one, on how your own setup is, also reach out to me. And I can also send it to Julie, and maybe she's going to do something with you as well. So let me know if you're interested, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Yep. Have a good one. Bye.